are two approaches that we can have, and you need to think long range here, both for future incarnations and for the one you're in now. You're going to make a decision in this incarnation on how you are going to be entering into the portal of fourth density, which will be completed, hopefully for you, either in this incarnation or in the very few upcoming incarnations. The secular path is really driven by the fact that many of us have amazement about entering into our new density. You know, after all, this is the first time a consciousness-driven individual has changed density ever in the history of our solar system, and in the history of mankind's multi-billion-year history here on Earth. In other words, 75,000 years ago, we entered into the third density from the second, and that transition was made when we became conscious individuals. We became conscious about our soul existence and about our responsibility to the light and our connection to the other side. That amazement, if you will, of us now for the first time as conscious individuals going into fourth density comes with a lot of toys and bells and a lot of tools and a lot of ideas. And that has led many of us and is leading many of us to focus on all the new information that we receive and that's out in the periphery. For example, I'll just tell you some of the topics that are floating out there. Are there ETs inside planet Earth? For example, I mean, for decades I've heard about, you know, extraterrestrials living inside Mount Shasta out on the West Coast. Okay. Levitation, can people levitate? ESP, what's that? What type of research do they do on Area 51? Are there UFOs taking off and arriving at Area 51 at night? When will aliens open up to visit us? So what about crop circles, for example? What about the Kabbalah or the Trilateral Commission? You know, what are they up to? Where do they live? Who are they? Where do they come from? And so on and so on. And I could give you a whole host of subjects ranging from everything you've seen there to quite a few more. Are there secret bases under Antarctica? You know, did Thomas Jefferson visit with ETs, and so on and so forth. So there are many of these topics, and these topics are what we call this is the secular path. And many people think erroneously that if they just hook on to some of these ideas and investigate them and spend time studying them, that makes them spiritual, or that makes them go on the right path. You absolutely are mistaken if you think that, but that is the path that many people take and will take, simply because they are so amazed by the fact that in many of the subjects that I just listed for you, there is truth in the origin of the subject and why it's there. There is something to dig for there, in other words. Is that something to focus on? Is that something to reset your compass for? The answer is absolutely not. The reason is that the topics are so explosive that you could very easily be drawn into them and make it a cult of its own, whereby you think that, oh, I'm going into fourth density because now I know about ETs, or now I know about, you know, XYZ subject. No, you don't. Okay. And this is very important, to keep your compass focused on yourself, your soul recording. I mean, the recording of your soul, of what your current life path is all about, completing your soul agreement, your agreement prior to coming down. That's very, very important. So if you're following the secular path, be assured that you are not on the right path. You are on the wrong path. The second thing is that, you know, the secular path is a focus on what happens around you. In the transition that we are glued to world events, they're triggered by the forces of service to self. We call them the FSS. So whenever I refer to the FSS, I'm referring to the forces for service to self, all right? Now, COVID, for example, the energy crisis, the energy collapse, the Ukrainian war, you know, is Russia going to launch a nuclear weapon, a dirty bomb? What about inflation? Defund the police? What's going to happen at the elections? You know, all of these things are part of the secular path because you focus on what is around you. Life is not what it was, and it is getting quite a bit worse by the month. So says CNN, CNBC, ABC, and every other news channel out there. So the question is that something you should listen to, which is part of the secular path, or should you go with another path, the second path? You're also, as a result of the secular path, you are bewildered, you need guidance. Some people, for example, they find a solution by seeking organized religion. Yes, organized religion is a secular path. Don't kid yourself. It has nothing to do with the second path. And on the sacred path, you don't focus on what happens around you. You focus exclusively on what happens inside you. That is very important because in the transition now, you are focused on personal changes that are triggered by the forces of service to others, which is the light and not the FSS. For example, you focus on improved perception. You focus on increased kindness. You focus on the desire to subordinate yourself to serve the light. You focus on a wish to communicate with the other side through prayer, through telepathic communication. And you focus on the inner person, meditation, etc. Your life is improving month by month because you have changed your spiritual compass around. Little typo there. So those are, if you will, the two paths, and it's very important for you to not to lose track of where you are going and keep track on the inner person that you so wish to improve. And it is important that you make a declaration to yourself that you want to increase that, because you are not bewildered any longer, because you receive clear and verifiable inner guidance from those who want you to choose the sacred path. You will not be alone. You will have guidance on the path and on that journey. So we, or any generation before us in the last 75,000 years, have never faced a bifurcation like the one we're facing now, where we have to really choose between the secular path and the sacred path. So I ask you to join on the sacred path. Whether you do it with us or without us is not the issue. The question is, are you going to choose the sacred path? I wanted to discuss that and mention that to you because it's very important. Turn off the news, which is an agency for the forces of service to self, and start listening to your own radio that is connected to the light.